Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. Ours is a place where dreams take flight, voices are heard, and stories are shared. This is where cultures meet, connections are formed, and ideas are transformed into action. This is your destination for authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations. We're where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover our world of education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our USA Global TV channel and download our USA Global TV app. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. With heartfelt thanks to our executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, music scored by Yifei Tang from Cloud Road Music, creative direction by Paul Garcia, and I'm Al Cini, and I'm very proud to be part of the USA Global TV and Radio family. So join us here at USA Global TV and Radio. Make us your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Thank you for being a part of our global community. Let's inspire together.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and it is an honor and privilege to be here with you today, wherever you're joining us from around the world. This is a brand new show. It's called Judgment, the Hidden Sin. And I'm super excited to be able to come to you every Wednesday at this time, whatever platform you're watching, please save the date, save the time. And this show is going to evolve with a number of people who are going to be joining me each week to talk about judgment in their area of expertise or how it's impacted them in their lives. We'll talk about on the show how I came up with this idea, what is the motivation behind it. But first, I want to introduce my co-host for today. His name is Al Cini. You may have just heard his voice on the introduction. Al has been with me since the very beginning. He is no stranger to television whatsoever. He has been on major networks for years, behind the scenes in project management and on the stage. He has been my mentor. He has been my collaborator, and he is my dear friend. Let's welcome Mr. Al Cini and find out what he is up to today. Welcome, Al.
Good morning, Dr. Jacalyn. Thank you, as always, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. And this is a terrific topic. Just great.
Thank you, Al. Today's topic is judgment and toxic management, and you have extensive experience in the business world. You have helped so many people. As I mentioned in the intro, you have guided me and mentored me in so many ways to help grow my business. And you also have your own businesses and have been a mentor to many others. So let's get right into it and tell us, what is it that you're doing? We see the logo here, Pro Fit for Teams. What exactly is this, and how is this of value to our audience?
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about what I do early on in this conversation. And then we're going to pivot to what you've done here, because it really is amazing. But anyway, I am, as you mentioned, a project manager, and that's the thing I do. And what any project manager wants, what any project leader yearns for every day, is the engagement, the participation, and the contributions, the practical contributions of the people in their teams to getting things done. That often conflicts with what a lot of people think the role of a project manager is, which is to, dare I say, criticize, nag, shame people along the way to make sure that they hit the marks they're supposed to hit. The frustrating thing, though, in project leadership is that the very act of doing that often suppresses the fundamentally proactive behavior that we want from the people who report to us. And those are judgments. And I want to talk about that in the broader sense of the workplace and how often judgment gets us less than we deserve, less than we need. But I want to start, though, with the whole subject of judgment and where it came from in your mind, Dr. Jacalyn. Where did you get the idea to write your book and to explore this topic?
Well, thanks for asking, Al. Actually, as you know, I teach listening courses, and I've written a number of books on listening. My latest which is out in the public domain, is Mastering the Power of Elevated Listening. This is the second edition, and it includes a section on judgment detox. So I've included judgment as part of what it is that I teach, because I think when it comes to listening at an elevated level, you are unable to, as a human being, be fully present if you are judging someone else. And all of us judge and have judged. And my reason for bringing this is awareness. So when we are judging someone else, a light bulb goes off and we say, okay, I realize what I'm doing right now. I'm judging someone else. And that's really not what I want to be doing. Or when someone judges us, that we know how to react. So the latest evolution as to what brought me to my new book, which is Holy But Harmful, The Hidden Sin of Judgment, is I was having a conversation with someone and we were talking about religion and spirituality. And so the person said to me, God doesn't know you or love you because you don't go to church. And so I used to go to church, but I had stopped after my mother passed away. We used to go together. So it set me on a journey because I have a research-based mind with a doctorate. And I wanted to see, is there somewhere in the Bible that states that if you don't go to church, that God doesn't love you or know you? And from there, I started interviewing people, clergy people, peace ambassador people, people who are everyday Christians, people who are not Christian, just asking people for their thoughts about this subject. And hence, that's where the book was born from.
You know, that is such an insightful realization on your part. And the interesting thing about the dynamic that you just described is the person who was offering the judgment didn't take credit for the judgment. They gave the credit for their judgment of you to the Lord God Almighty, which basically is me saying I must be right because I'm quoting God when I tell you what I'm really wanting to tell you personally. And that whole idea that sometimes religion masks a lot of passive aggressive behavior is kind of true, isn't it?
Well, that's what I'm finding in my research. So my book, which will be out on September 23rd in honor, we're celebrating this month, International Day of Peace. I'm a peace ambassador. And in the book, and then we'll switch over to the topic for today, there is a lot of information which is scientifically based. Excuse me. It's based on scripture. We've got motivational quotes. We've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we've got everything around listening at an elevated level. And what happens when you are the one judging, how it comes back and sits with you. So I'll leave the audience with this. I have very long nails and I get a lot of judgment about them. And part of the reason I've kept them, because they're not always the most functional, is I know that it bothers people. I don't know why it actually bothers people, but it really does. And people make a point to say something. Don't you think your nails are too long? And then I say, what's coming up for you when you see my nails? What is it inside you that is being triggered when you see my nails? So thank you, Al, for the question. And I'd love to go on to toxic management. So tell our audience, if you would, about your experience leading teams, and then with this wonderful product and suite of services, how you help people who are leading teams.
I'm happy to do that. And thanks again for the opportunity. You know, I want to start with a shout out to my partner in ProFit for Teams. Her name is Lisa Manioki, and you know her pretty well, Dr. Jacalyn. We've appeared together on various programs of yours. And one of her coaching philosophies, in fact, her coaching program, separate from ProFit for Teams, is something she refers to as presence intelligence. And she makes the point that we begin our journey of forming an impression with other people, often even before we enter the room with them, which means people aren't just judging you based on your fingernails or on the dress you're wearing or how dressed up you are. People are judging you on what they've heard about you before they've met you. People are judging you on what they see you're wearing or what they perceive in you even before you walk into the room. And so judgment is something we just have to live with. It'd be great if we lived in a world without it. But I'll leave you with it in terms of how it hurts in the workplace. It's a very complicated dynamic that actually boils down to a couple of really simple examples. If you're doing something and you're making progress at something, and I stop you, maybe even yell at you, because the way you're doing it is not the way I'd be doing it, then what I'm doing in that particular instance is forming a judgment that you perceive as exactly that. It's a judgment from me, a criticism of you from me, especially if I have a position of authority, especially if I have a perceived position of authority, which means you don't report to me. I'm a project manager. Most project managers don't manage the people in their teams. They facilitate the activity of the people on their teams, but they still have a kind of an implicit position of authority, and that position of authority gives criticism and judgment weight. And when I burden you with my judgment while you're doing something, the first thing you tend to do is stop doing what you're doing, because judgment is like a red light. As soon as I flash it, activity comes to a halt while people are trying to figure out what you imagine they should be doing instead. And if they don't receive your judgment as open criticism, a suggestion, something that makes sense, not a person, if they see what you're telling them as a personal attack, they'll just stop. They'll come to a dead stop, which means you as a project manager have to do the whole project by yourself.
Excellent viewpoint. Thank you so much for sharing that, Al. You know, I'm reminded of something that happened to me when I was in corporate, and I think it's in alignment with what you just shared. May I share it with you?
Sure.
When I was in corporate, I was calling on a huge global B2B company. I'm not going to say the name, obviously. And one of their lines of products was focused on hair care. And I thought when I went up to do the final pitch that I would align myself with their brand that we were putting this proposal for. So the item was something that you put in your hair for temporary color. And so on our CRM package software, I put out a poll asking our team members if they thought I should go with one color or another. So in other words, I'd have some streaks of this color in my hair. And I was at a company dinner before the pitch, and one of the senior executives said to me in front of everyone at the table, "Jacalyn, remember when you call on XYZ company that you're representing this company, and don't go in there looking like a hooker." And the whole table just stopped talking. And I felt totally judged. I felt like our client was being judged. I felt like hookers were being judged. I felt like there was so much judgment going on there. And yet I was subordinate to this person. And so I had to make a decision right then what I was going to do.
Is it judgment, though, or is it envy with judgment as a mask?
Do elaborate. Please do tell.
A big headache in project management, which is right down the alley of the story you just told. A big headache in project management are newly appointed project managers who used to be individual contributors. As individual contributors, because they were really good, they were recognized. And one of the things an individual contributor likes by way of recognition is a promotion. Now, the next logical step for a highly qualified individual contributor is to make them a manager. Although they're rarely qualified or properly trained for it, they then become a manager. And they then seek to identify themselves in terms of their ability to compete with the how of things that are being done by the people that report to them. And when they see somebody standing out in the team they manage, they can actually become, I almost want to say, secretly jealous, meaning they're feeling envy, but they don't recognize it as that. And their response to it is that they feel they need to compete with the person who reports to them. That's a good way to do it, but I would have done it better. Have you considered doing it this way instead? All those judgments add up to a paralyzing factor. It's funny, we talk all the time about how what we want is excellence, and what we want to build is a meritocracy. But a lot of our leadership skills are aimed at promoting mediocrity rather than excellence. So instead of recognizing excellence when we see it, we tend to compete with it. We want to pull it down to a level that we can compete at. And that kind of dynamic, I think, greatly reduces the performance of a team. Everybody's so busy alert to what might be coming at them that they're forgetting what it is they're supposed to be doing. And a lot of work doesn't get done as a result of that.
Yes, I agree with you on that. And I think, Al, just to try to sum up this particular point, you and I had a shared experience, and we worked together doing TV, as you know, before this platform. And I was given an ultimatum, which was I could continue on that platform and give up the radio that I was doing, or I could leave. And so I chose to leave. And having left and stayed on the radio, I then started this platform. So the judgment forces us at times to make decisions. And in that case, I loved what I was doing with you at that other network, but I didn't like the ultimatum, which to me came as being judged for not being able to determine if I was able to be on the radio and television. It's like I wasn't savvy enough to figure out how to do both.
You know that I'm really glad you brought that up, because especially today on teams, the people on your team might be a client, somebody that's retaining your services to manage a team, or for whom you work actually as a team leader. But on today's teams, other people in your team could be vendors or collaborators from other teams. And everybody sees you when you're doing exactly what you just described, which means when I send a signal out, especially in front of a group, to one person to pick on them because I don't like the way they're doing something, and I don't extend to them the courtesy of taking that criticism and offering it privately, I do that in front of everybody. Well, everybody else on the team sees that too. Everybody else on the team knows that I do that. And that influences, negatively affects every relationship I have with every member of my team. I mean, people know when people are being cruel, and people tend to avoid cruel people because they don't want to be their target. So an awful lot of lonely people, I think, are people who unconsciously judge others to the point where those others then want to exclude them from their circle.
That's right, because we don't exist in a void. Somebody's always watching somewhere. Just given the fact that we've got cameras everywhere we go today, everything we do is being watched. And so, Al, I'd love to have you share for our audience, what are some signs, I'm going to say symptoms of judgment that's toxic in the workplace?
One big one, and I hear it all the time from people that we talk to about team development, and that one common complaint that I hear all the time is that, you know, everybody on my team, everybody in my company is working really hard, often 50, 60 hours a week, and I feel as though everybody's investing 110% of themselves in the work that we do around here. But somehow, month after month, quarter after quarter, nothing seems to change. For all the work and for all the activity and for all the effort and for all the pain that I hear about, it feels as though we're never really making any actual progress. Nothing ever changes. And that kind of gets us back to the discussion of passive aggressive behavior. When you're picking at people and pretending it's something else, like informed judgment or a salary review, employee performance review. When you're picking at somebody and disguising it as something else, people know what it is. It's a kind of an implicit form of bullying. And the reaction to it generally isn't compliance, it's generally resistance. And that resistance manifests as passive aggressive behavior that suppresses progress. So you actually get the opposite of what you want, because without meaning to, you've demotivated everybody on your team. Then again, you can't be blamed for it because you've done everything exactly the way you were told as a project manager things ought to be done. I mean, you call it judgment, I call it clear communication. You call it criticism, I call it helpful advice. And as long as I stay in the pocket of what other people will judge me for, which is, wow, he's a tough project manager. Well, tough project managers get lousy results. Flexible project managers, friendly project managers, supportive project managers get terrific results because they don't insist on getting the credit for it. They want everybody else to get the credit for it while they kind of stand in the background ordering pizzas and throwing parties. Does that sound familiar to you, Dr. Jacalyn, based on your work in the workplace?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It sounds very familiar. And Al, my background includes loyalty programs. So when you talk about the pizza parties and the points-based programs, that really is a big part of loyalty. But what it comes down to is not that control, not instilling fear. It's the word you use, being flexible. I work to say yes as often as I possibly can. And when I first started this platform, I was somewhat afraid that people would leave. And of course, people do leave because other things, other opportunities come up in life. And so what I realized was give people that opportunity to go explore and see what else is out there for them. And you and I have talked before about life and relationships as a tree. And of course, there are the roots, and then there are the branches, and there are the leaves. And many people come in and out of our lives. They're the leaves. They come in and they blow off, and then new leaves come. And so I find also in management, there are many times when managers or leaders, they're not the same thing, are coming from a place of fear and coming from a place of control. I control everything. I run this company. You report to me. You do what I say. And that doesn't sit well.
No, it doesn't sit well with anybody. We hadn't brought up the F word until you just did. Fear, which really might be that insecurity, an uncomfortable feeling in your own skin, might actually lead you to act out in a way that expresses judgment inappropriately to others. So I think you're absolutely right. You're spot on there. You nailed it. Fear is at the bottom of a lot of those kinds of reactions. And the frustrating thing for me as a project leader is that I see projects fail. To your point that sometimes people fall out of touch, but they stay connected. For the last 2 years, I've been helping to manage a pretty ambitious project for a TV network in New York. That's made it difficult for me to balance time on USA Global TV, as you know, but we've still stayed in touch through that. Well, over those 2 years of experience that I've had, it's the collegial project where people are encouraged to work together and recognized for the work they do, and not to be made to feel fearful of judgment, but instead to feel inspired by the work and the progress and the results. Those are the teams that hit their marks. They meet their deadlines, exceed their deadlines, spend less money than the money they were budgeted for, find ways to save money. And not because the leader was brilliant and brilliantly led them, but because the leader facilitated them and they led themselves when they knew what the goal was, when they knew what the objective was. And so that's why I usually refer to it more as project leadership than project management.
Thank you, Al. We do have a comment, which we're going to take in just a moment. So hold on, Frank. We'll be right with you. My question to you is, as a result of the pandemic, the way that many organizations operate has changed. And so people were working from home in their pajamas, their living room, wherever they were. And people got a lot of things done, or maybe they didn't. But many organizations are now requiring that their employees come back to the office. So my question for you is, when we think about flexibility and we think about having a workplace that is not toxic, how much do you give to the employees in terms of, okay, you know what is best for you and how you produce measurable results and in return on the investment we've made in you, versus this is the way that we do business and you get on board or goodbye?
That's a great question. And I have a feeling that the answer to that question is more subtle than what you would think the obvious answer is. There are an awful lot of corporations, Jamie Dimon, for example, corporate leaders who were saying, you got to come back to work. We built this office building, 500,000 square feet. We need people to sit in it. Otherwise, why did we build it? Now, on the one hand, what you're looking for is the kind of bubble up activity that happens when people work together physically, especially in certain environments, let's say like stock trading. The activity that you feel, the buzz that you feel in the room you're working in with other people who are also working in their separate work areas, I think that could be very motivational. It could be very discovery oriented. I mean, you could learn things from other people just by watching them or listening to them talk. Those are opportunities that you don't get when you're working at home. Now, so some companies are requiring that people come back to work, and I understand the motivation for that. But I also know that in those companies, for certain home run hitters, For certain people who behave in a certain aligned way that gets things done, if you went to your manager and said, listen, I need 2 or 3 days to work from home every week, those exceptions would be made for you, are typically made for you. But for the average employee, you kind of have to prove yourself before you're allowed that level of flexibility, which means we're actually now challenging that whole rule of everybody has to be treated exactly the same, where everybody has to abide by the same rules and everybody has to live under the same conditions. I understand that too. That's social justice, and I totally get the need for that. But at the same time, 2 different people working for the same company don't just become the same person because they work for the same company. They live 2 different lives. They have different constraints. There are things in their private lives that they can share maybe with a manager to get some flexibility that maybe they don't want everybody else in their team to know about. And that's perfectly reasonable. So, yeah, everybody should go back to work. They should work in the office. But at the same time, every leader needs to listen carefully to the needs, especially of their best performers, of the people who do the best work, maybe, or the people who've been there the longest. Listen to them and try to accommodate them where you can. And you got to work with HR on that to make sure you don't break any laws. But that's what HR is for.
Al, I appreciate your perspective, and I'm going to give a different perspective, counterpoint. So what if the person who isn't one of the line leaders or one of the A-level players in terms of their performance and how they've been rated based on that, they decide that you are judging me because I'm not as performing at the same level as this other person. However, if you gave me the opportunity to do things the way that I want to do, I can commit to you that I will be one of the top performers.
Okay, I'm going to jump on your side of the argument because it's a great one. Yeah, and this is unfortunately true of all human beings. In our lives, we have some people that we're a little closer to than other people. We have some people that we'd rather spend time with than other people. That's just the way it is. So everybody has kind of an inner circle and then a larger circle of people that they see from time to time, but are not as constantly in touch with them. Okay, so we got favorites is another way of putting that. When you're a department leader, I don't want to just say project manager because it's true of anybody in a leadership position. When you start playing favorites and picking people that you like better than other people, because you like them, because maybe you used to work with them, because maybe you bowl together or fish together. When you start picking favorites and playing favorites, everybody else sees that. And they then legitimately can argue, well, the reason why you let Steve or Jane or Jacalyn work from home is because you like them more than you like me. Now, if I can make an argument like that, and I can go to HR and I can hire a lawyer, I can make a lot of trouble for a company. And that's why you need to be careful about it. But on the other hand, if you're the boss and you know that somebody on your team that you value has a physical infirmity or problems with their children or problems at home, whatever they might be, and as a result of that, they require a little bit more flexibility than other people might just because of their situation. Well, if they're valuable to you as a human being, then they're valuable enough to listen to your point, to listen to try to understand, and then to keep us all out of trouble, bring HR into the conversation, especially in a large company, because you want to make sure that you stay on the sunny side of the rules when you offer that kind of flexibility. I hope that resonates with you because, yeah, you've got to be tough sometimes. You absolutely have to be. But the appearance of being tough and actually being tough are 2 completely different things. And a lot of people feel as though in order to express themselves as effective leaders, they need to be rigid, inflexible, and difficult. And often that means that their tool to look rigid, inflexible, and difficult is unwanted criticism, judgment. And that actually puts you behind the 8 ball it really is not a good place to be. It actually ruins the game if it gets people to stop playing it.
Absolutely. And just for our friends who are joining us and haven't been on one of our programs, any of our programs, there's no script. Al does not know what I'm going to be asking him. I don't know what
Right.
Al is going to say. So I'm going to share something that, since our topic is judgment and toxic management, and I am a peace ambassador. I just took my oath on Saturday. I would like to offer this up, the first of 5 peace actions for anyone and everyone. Seek peace within yourself and others. So is it possible that a person is a leader, they're a manager, and they're still a human being, and they come from that place first? They come from a place of seeking peace within themselves and within others. Is that something that can be incorporated into a leadership or management style?
Is kindness a leadership skill? Or is it just something people do when they're kind? I mean, do you have to check your kindness at the door when you go to work as a leader because there's something about kindness that makes you vulnerable and weak? And really, I think that's a fundamental tool in achieving peace, at least as peace as I understand it. I wanted to ask you, though, Dr. Jacalyn, you mentioned we had a comment from somebody named Frank. I think I know who that Frank is.
Yeah, we're getting to Frank. Let's go down there now, and then we'll come back. Frank Viola. How does a manager discern when he's coaching versus when he's judging? Is it rooted in the space where he's coming from? How does a subordinate employee, which is which?
I went to college with Frank, which means together we're as old as Thomas Jefferson. So, in fact, I think Frank Viola and I, if I'm not mistaken, used to tease Benjamin Franklin. He was a senior. We were freshmen. I know.
I've heard that.
I know. I think I've used that before. Frank, that's a great question. There's a quote, one of the twos, I can't remember. The leader does nothing, yet nothing goes undone. When you're acting in a way that is intended to express the fact that you're a leader, then you're judging. When you're acting in a way that expresses the way a friend would express her or himself, then you're coaching. And there is no reason why, within certain constraints, a manager and a subordinate can't be friends. They absolutely can be friends. In the manager's role, the conversation becomes a little bit more focused and maybe a little bit more constrained. But I need to be able to listen to you as an employee. If you're doing something that I feel could be done better, I need to take some time to understand what you are thinking. And that means that I ask the question. This is really for my partner, Lisa, who is brilliant at this. There are 2 ways to ask the question, what were you thinking? One way is to ask it expressing that you already know the answer. In other words, you're an idiot, and I don't believe you just did this, and I would never do it this way. So there's the what were you thinking judgmental way of asking that question. And then there's the what do you think? What do you, without knowing the answer to the question, what do you think? Why are you approaching it this way? How do you think this helps? Why does it make it easier? Is there some way we can make it even easier still? Work together on that. I like that idea. That maybe not such a great idea. I mean, it's possible to have the conversation in a way that's a learning, listening conversation rather than a preaching, lecturing conversation. And I think peace falls on the learning, listening side of things. And the lack of peace is stolen by bullying, I guess, is the way a lot of people would see it. I mean, even if it doesn't meet the technical definition. When I already know what I want from you by way of an answer, and I ask my question to get that, what I'm really doing is bullying you in an emotional way. As a leader, if you do that, you're going to lose your people. I don't know whether this answers Frank's specific question. Knowing Frank, he has very detailed requirements on facts, and great guy, by the way, and also adept at solving corporate problems. Definitely really often called in to solve the unsolvable corporate problems. We're dying, we don't know what to do about it, kind of thing. And Frank is great at that. So thanks for asking that question, Frank. And I hope I was somewhat adequate in answering it from your point of view, knowing that's a pretty high bar. Jacalyn, I'm sorry. Peace.
Thank you,
What is
Al.
peace?
Thank you, Frank. I'd like to weigh in on Frank's first question, if I may. The question is, how does a manager discern when he's coaching versus when he's judging? So in the training that I took to become a certified life, career, and executive coach, what I learned was, and it's kind of the same philosophy we use here, is that you open up the conversation with a thought-provoking question. And the question typically will be what, how, where, or when. It will not include why. Because many times when you ask something why, people are like, oh, defensive automatically. So you start with one of those 4 words. What were you thinking, Al, when you started the project? And then Al's going to take his time. We're going to be quiet. We're not going to interject. Al's going to answer because he doesn't feel like he's being called on the defensive. And then Al will answer. What I was thinking was X, Y, and Z. Then as a coach, we take that information and we ask another question. So, for example, someone said to me that they think I'm very showy. And I said, what are you feeling when you think of me as showy? Well, I feel uncomfortable because you have too much makeup on or because of your jewelry. Well, what about the jewelry or the makeup is making you feel uncomfortable? Going down, going down, going down, going down. So to me, that's how you can tell if you're coaching, because you're actually getting the other person to open up and talk as opposed to you giving the information. So judging might be name calling. You are an idiot. You will never make it here. You are not good enough. So-and-so is better than you. So to me, that is a way of distinguishing between coaching and judging. Thoughts, Mr. Cini?
And my thought and reaction to that is obviously a state of peace. Since you're a peace ambassador, a state of peace needs to be maintained throughout that entire exchange. Nobody can ever feel so threatened that they feel like they're out of peace, like now all of a sudden they need to be combative or resistant. You want to try to prevent that wherever you can, which means how you ask the question, what were you thinking, radically affects the emotional response somebody has to being asked a question like that. And if what you really want to know is what they were actually thinking, then you need to ask it. You need to ask that question in a context and in a way that actually gets them to answer it the way you'd like them to answer it, which is honestly, openly, and with kind of genuine factual intent, without feeling threatened by it. Because as soon as they feel threatened, they become resistant. As soon as they become resistant, they stop working. And that, the fact that when your people stop work, people are brilliant. I mean, cagey. I shouldn't say cagey. They're all nice people. Everybody who's ever worked with me on a project team has been a very wonderful person. They've all been different. But I know this about them. Whenever I've blown a whistle, whenever I've raised my voice, whenever I've asked the question, what were you thinking? Rather than, well, what do you think? Whenever I ask the question that way, they've all come to a dead stop. That's it. It's red light. I'm not doing anything. And by the way, like I said at the top of it, when we talk to people that we work with, everybody around here is working really hard. They're working 60 hours a week, but I feel from quarter to quarter, from month to month, we're not making any progress. That's what you see. That's exactly the result of it. When you take peace out of the workplace, when making people feel threatened becomes part of the norm rather than the rare exception, that's what you get, and you deserve it.
Thank you, Al. Excellent as always. And I'd like to add on to that, because I think this is really important, because people are watching the show and things are coming up for them, right? They're watching and listening to what you and I have to say, and they're probably judging us. They're probably judging us because that's how life is. No one's asked this question yet, but there may be people out there in a leadership position or position of authority within the organization who are thinking, this is ridiculous. I get paid to produce numbers and my team has to produce those numbers. I don't have time to handhold and, oh, Bill is sick today or Susie's child is starting back to school. Well, yes, you do have to care about that, because these are the people who are the ones who are going to produce results and stand by you. And Al, what's the number one reason people leave an organization?
The number one reason people leave in an organization, their usual number one blame is the person they report to. Usually it's their manager that causes them to leave. And not necessarily because their manager is bad, but because their manager makes them feel bad. I'm not calling my manager a bad person. I'm saying that my manager has found a way to make me feel bad about the work that I'm doing, often even though the client might like the work I'm doing. So I have this weird conflict between doing it the way my boss wants and doing it the way I feel it needs to be done. There should never be a conflict between those two paths. It should always be clear, and I should always have the support of whoever it is that's managing my activity. I should put it that way. mean, their job is to make sure that when we get to the top of the mountain, we're all at the top of the same mountain. I totally get that. But from moment to moment, I'm the guy climbing my face. I need to make decisions based on the cracks I see and the holes that I see and the ice that I find and the water I see. Which means I need to I have to climb the mountain by myself. My leader's job is to make sure when I get to the top, I'm where everybody else is. If we can all play it that way, we'd all get much better results out of each other. And often I think managers discover that some of the most valuable people on their teams are the people that they're not friendly with, that they don't spend very much time with, or the people that maybe they would say they don't like. But just because you don't like them doesn't mean they're not a resource and that you can't do something to inspire them to make a contribution that needs to be made. And that's a responsibility we all have. And one last thing on ProFit for Teams. I completely agree. Nobody has the time for this. Nobody has the time to work with their teams. Nobody knows or even knows how to approach their people as people. Well, I've managed a lot of really demanding, highly technical project activities. I can tell you from my own experience, spending time with the people and making people feel like they make a difference gets the most technical engineering problems solved, the most complicated engineering solutions achieved in the shortest possible time at the lowest possible cost. And in ProFit for Teams, which is what we do commercially, we get it done in half a day because we know how.
There you go. ProFit for Teams. It's for everyone who is interested in having a workplace that is not filled with toxic management. Al, I also want to broach this subject because you just touched on it, is the fact that people want to feel seen and heard, not judged. So someone once said to me in my corporate career, they know that I have ulcerative colitis and it's an exhausting disease, and said to me in front of a group of people, do you think you have enough energy to keep doing this job? And I remember feeling like mortified that the person didn't have any compassion for someone who has ulcerative colitis and was really putting me down. And so someone else came up to me later and said, how can I support you during this time when you're going through this illness? And I thought, wow, the same organization, two people, one person sees me, validates me and my feelings without actually knowing what they are, and the other one was judging me.
Who's going to get the most out of you?
Exactly.
Who are you going to work harder for? I mean, if you got to take a bullet, who are you going to take a bullet for? I'd step out of the way of the first guy and make sure the bullet got to him.
Well, Al, my question for you is, how difficult is it to switch our mindset from go, do? By the way, I just want to add this in. I literally heard someone say this recently, is that we churn and burn people. I didn't comment, but the person said, we bring them on, we invest the money in the training. They've got 2 weeks. If they don't do it the way I say that needs to be done, then they're fired. And I thought to myself, how long is this company going to stay in business? Because I don't see this as a model that is going to be a place where people feel respected and heard.
It isn't at all. And, a lot of people think that, let me answer your question, if I may, in terms of the dynamic. In order for somebody to feel comfortable at USA Global TV, for example, or in any company, in any not-for-profit, in any endeavor, on any team, no matter what that team is, including a family, including inside a family, in order for somebody to feel comfortable in a family, they need to have answers to 3 questions. The first question is, who am I? Am I special here? Do I have gifts that are needed by this family? Do I make contributions that matter to people? Am I equal to this? That's number 1. Number 2 is, who are you? Of all the other people in my family, can I rely on you? Can I trust you? Are you somebody who's going to backstab me? Or are you somebody who's going to support me if I need support? That's question number 2. And those 2 questions are widely explored in the field of coaching, widely explored. And they need to be. And you know this, I think, Dr. Jacalyn, from your own experience as a coach. I need to know who I am. I need to know who you are. And then the bigger question is the question most people don't know how to grapple with. I shouldn't say never do. They're grappling with it all the time. They just don't know how to ask the question. And that last question is, who are we? Now that I'm comfortable with who I am in this family, and that I'm comfortable with everybody else and know where they're coming from, and know that I can trust them and believe in them in this family. That last question is, who are we as a family? Who are we? How do we present as though we were a virtual person walking the world? What's the difference we make together? When I start organizing my thoughts around that third question, the answers to the first and second questions are givens and no longer necessary. I'm now focusing on what needs to be done rather than who's doing the work. And along the way, criticizing people that I think could be doing the work better if they just did it the way I would do it, which is the exercise of ego and judgment, and the opposite of what you want, and the opposite of what we do in the work we do, by the way.
Al, I'd love to have you elaborate on this when it comes to actual teams in business. Many times there are specific titles people hold. There's only one organization that I actually ever called on where they had no titles. It was very interesting, and they're still in business today. But for traditional companies that have labels, your job is, you have a job description. How do people work together on a cohesive team when some people might have the perception, I'm more than, I'm better than, I have more control, more power, more autonomy? What are your thoughts?
Here's my thought. We all have, actually, it's not a thought, it's experience. Years and years ago, do we have enough time?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is going to take a few minutes. It's worth it, though, I think, in my opinion. Quite a few years ago, I was teaching a technical course for a group of very technical people. This is way, way back, many years ago. And it was a one-day course. And at the end of the morning session, everybody that I was teaching, who all worked for the same company, they went off to have lunch. They had a meeting. And when they came back at like 1:30 or 2 o'clock to pick up where we left off, only half of them were there. That's because between the morning session of this class that I'm teaching and the afternoon session, half of them were laid off. We're told, go back to your offices, empty out your desks, you're finished. Half of them. And there were maybe 25, 30 people in this class. So I end up in the afternoon with just 15 survivors. If you can imagine, people who forget what I'm talking about. I mean, they just saw all their buddies lose their jobs. And they were just relieved to still have theirs, but they were loaded with survivor guilt. So I didn't know how to begin the afternoon session. I didn't work for the company. I was a contractor for the company. But I tried to remind everybody in the room that there is this thing called human dignity, where individuals have dignity and have a right to exist independently of any job somebody might give them or take away from them. So I drew a picture of the org chart of their company with the people that I knew ran it at the top, and with them, the 15 people that were left, their names at the bottom. I said, it's really easy in any organization to lose sight of the fact that even though you're at the bottom of the org chart, the truth of the matter is that org chart really depends more on you than it depends on any of the people above you, because you're the person the customer sees. So in your head, take the org chart that you have in your mind, and you're wondering what the CEO is going to do next and who they're going to lay off next, and turn the org chart upside down. You're the boss. The CEO reports to you. Their job is to make sure that you have all the tools you need to satisfy the requirements of your customers. You're at the top of the org chart. And what I need for you all to remember is that the tools that I'm teaching you about today are to make you more proficient at what you do as a technician, not to secure your job in this company. So whether you keep the job in your company or somehow transition to some other company, these skills are going to be valuable to you because you need these skills to make your customer happy, no matter who you're doing that for. And that, to me, has always been the way you solve problems like that, the way you approach problems like that. I don't know whether that lines up with the question you asked, Dr. Jacalyn.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And Al, we are coming towards the end of our program, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to talk about something that we're going to be doing together in the future. You and I used to do a television show together called The Business Talk Show. And of course, we work together at another network, and we're going to be going and doing another collaboration. Would you like to share that with our audience? And then we'll talk about ProFit for Teams and how people can work with you.
I would love this. We're working together, you and I, on evolving a program called Ahead for Business, where we explore the kinds of biases and mindset issues and faulty thinking that cause an awful lot of the mistakes that really hurt people, and often irreparably. And we're going to springboard the program off of mistakes like the Cracker Barrel branding, and even going all the way back to Nuke versus Classic Coke. Mistakes that people may have made, even sometimes deliberate mistakes to get headlines out of it. But the Titan voyage to the bottom of the sea disaster, the bad judgments, these are cases where teams have not worked together for the good of humanity or even the good of the client, but instead have been pursuing a CEO's individual private interests, often into a dead end. We'll talk about branding companies like Jaguar, for example, and then talk about the kinds of things that go on in your head that might cause these problems, and things that you can adjust to prevent them or to adapt to them or recover from them. So that really is a head for business. It's a mix of neuroscience and business, and with a lot of fun and humor kind of mixed into it.
And we'll be looking forward to launching that very soon. And of course, opening it up to having some fabulous guests who want to share their stories or weigh in. Specifically, you just mentioned Cracker Barrel. By the way, there's also judgment in all of those things as well. So I think we'll be bringing that in. We cannot get away from judgment. But my goal, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, is for us to be aware of when we're judging and how we're going to react as a result of that, which to me is no reaction, or doing what I did, do some research and see if what they're saying has validity.
Yeah.
So Al, you and Lisa are the collaborators of ProFit for Teams. Lisa, if you're out there, hello, we miss you, we love you. What is it that you can offer to our audience specifically, and how do people get in alignment with working with you, with bringing you on to assist?
Okay, first of all, Lisa, if you're not there, then I want a note from your doctor, which, by the way, is a judgment, and I take it back immediately. Second of all, ProFit for Teams is a team development program that Lisa and I have co-developed. My end of it has been quantitative and instrumentation, which is how do you measure whether somebody feels like they belong on a team? And is that measurement of belonging related to anything that's important? And is it something we should worry about? And if it is, how do we change it? How do we move forward from there? And as a result of that, we've used a lot of social psychology and a lot of neuroscience all under the hood to craft a half-day experience that has a heart. And that really is where Lisa makes the critical contributions. It's a program that is quantitative and scientific, which means my engineering community will love it. The engineers that I work with, also a very underserved community of team building participants, by the way. I think they'll love it because it is precise and scientific, but at the same time oriented toward their particular needs as individual humans. And we craft all that using an instrument that we've developed called a discovery audit that feeds a process that takes only half a day, that could be delivered virtually or in person. And most people would call that team building. We call it team development because we think it's more than just team building. So, Dr. Jacalyn, I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I'm reachable at 212-480-3730, or you can also email me at al@pro-fit4teams4teams.com.
And Al, what about for people outside of the United States? Are you able to work with them?
Oh, sure. Well, we can deliver virtually. Our only constraint at the moment is English. We have hooks in the discovery audit to translate it into other languages. We're focusing more on a English language-based population at the moment, but eventually we'll have versions. We've been asked to produce a version of the discovery audit in Hindi, for example. And considering the number of engineers in India who participate in programs all over the world, projects all over the world, I can see that could be of value.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Al. I really enjoyed this. And thank you for being my first guest on our program, Judgment, the Hidden Sin. What would you like to leave our audience with today?
Well, if we don't leave our audience with anything else, it's that judgment destroys peace. Peace, however you want to define it, however you want to understand it, is something you can't afford to lose if success is what you have in mind. If you intend to fail, then you can do that in a climate of chaos and animosity. You can fail quite handily in that. and yet look like you're doing a good job, which is kind of the sad thing there. But if you don't maintain a kind of a climate of peace and sense of peace inside your organization, then ultimately your people are going to stop working for you. That's the opposite of what you want. And judgment is the fastest way to kill peace.
I couldn't have said it any better. Thank you, Al.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you for your
pleasure.
friendship and your mentorship. And thank you for all that you've done to help shape USA Global TV and Radio and to support me personally. I really do appreciate you.
My pleasure, Doc. Thank you for inviting me today.
Thank you. See you again soon. Bye.
You bet.
Well, there you have it, our first episode of Judgment, the Hidden Sin, and our topic, Judgment and Toxic Management. If you would like to be a guest and share your story, you can go to our website. I'm going to pull up the link. That's right, I'm producing the show and hosting it. Here is the link. It's in the show notes. You can go over there and you can book in. I think we have openings starting in December. And if we get really full, we'll open it up for a second episode each week, because I know all of us have been judged and all of us have expertise in certain areas. And if you'd like to share it, please do. Please go over and book in. What I'd like to leave you with today is that this show is not about judging anyone. It is not about judging any situation. It is about making us aware of what judgment is, when we're judging, and how we feel when we're being judged. And once we are being judged or we have judged someone, what is the next logical step? So I'd like to leave you with this. For me, I like to take the situation, whatever it is, and I give myself 10 minutes to feel emotional. So for example, when those comments were made earlier, I mentioned various scenarios. I'm much better at it today than I was before, but I'll give myself 10 minutes for boo-hoo, 10 minutes. I'm so aggravated, I'm angry. And then after the 10 minutes, I look for what is the solution. Sometimes the solution is not something that we really feel comfortable with. It might be the conclusion of a relationship. Maybe you thought that relationship, if we think of the tree, maybe you thought that it was the roots of the tree, but it turns out the relationship were just leaves on a tree branch. And that's okay. Don't judge yourself for making a decision to let go of something. Maybe someone's saying something to you because it's really about them and they're not aware of it. Is it your job to teach them, to coach them? I can't answer that. Only you can answer that, because will your response include more judgment? Sometimes it's best when we take a step back, we take a 6-second pause and we think about, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And this is something that I work on every day. I am not an expert by any means. I am just a human being, just like you are. I'd like to ask you to contact Al at ProFit for Teams. We have his contact information there in the show notes. And I'd also like to make you aware of my new book that's coming out, Holy But Harmful. And this, again, is not judgment about anyone or anything. You may be judging me because of the book. Let me just bring up the book cover for us to see. Holy But Harmful, the silent sin of judgment, how hidden judgments destroy relationships and damage lives. You may look at this cover and you may think, oh, I don't like that. What is she trying to say? Is she picking on me because of my religious background? No. The answer is no. If you are judging me for writing this book, maybe something that you can consider purchasing the book, because you don't know what's in there and you're just judging it. So that's what we do. You might judge the way I look, but until you get to know me, you don't know who I am. So you don't know what that book is about because you haven't read it. It's not available yet, but you can pre-order it on Amazon. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of today's conversation. As I mentioned, we're looking for you to share your stories. We currently have about 60 different television shows here on USA Global TV and Radio. We stream to 60 countries. And we have show hosts from all different parts of the world. We're also starting our new show in French. I think today is the third episode, La Voix de la Garçon. I hope I said that right. And we have a new German show. I'm not even going to try to say the title of that, but that's starting in September 16th with Mr. Roland Friedel. So we're expanding, and we thank you for taking this ride with us. I would like to ask that you subscribe to our 2 channels wherever you're watching. You can still watch from Facebook and LinkedIn and wherever else. If you would kindly go over to YouTube and subscribe to our channels, we'd really appreciate it, because we get real-time information about who's watching, how long they're watching, and this helps us with our programming. And then finally, if you'd like to learn more, you can sign up for my course, Judgment Detox. This is a course for everyone. Again, we're not judging anyone or anything. We're just suggesting, if you want to have a life that is filled with peace, it's not some big pie in the sky dream. You personally want to have inner peace. I ask you to consider 5 peace actions from the World Citizen Peace Organization. Seek peace within yourself and others. Don't point the finger. When we point the finger, it's your fault. It's your job. It's your responsibility. This thumb is pointing back at me. It's my job. It's my responsibility. It starts with each and every one of us. Reach out in service. Help someone else. Look around you. Who can you help? It doesn't have to be monetarily. Protect the environment. There's so many ways we can do this. Respect diversity and be a responsible citizen of the world. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for listening. We're going to go over to our sponsors. We also have an entire line of logo merchandise. You can get a shirt if you're a fan, if you've been a guest, if you're one of our team members, if you're a sponsor, if you're just somebody who really likes what we're doing with our world-class education. Why not rep our brands? Actually, I have something right here I'm going to show you. This is one of the shirts that I wear on a regular basis. I just have it hanging up here, but I'm a top 10 TV show host. Really good quality shirts. And then I have another one here, which is really for anyone. Anyone can wear this shirt if you're an elevated listener. And we have an entire thing of hats and mugs. Here's our ad. Check it out. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you again next week.
Get ready to wear the brand that's changing the world of media. Introducing the official USA Global TV and Radio online store. From our TV show hosts to our incredible global guests, you asked, we delivered. Rep your appearance with pride. Whether you've been on air, hosted a show, or tuned in, we have something just for you. Visit us at usaglobaltvradioshoп.myspreadshop.com and start shopping today. Check back frequently. We're dropping fresh new designs all the time. Showcase your role in our global community. These designs celebrate your voice, your story, your presence. It's more than just merchandise. It's a movement of hope, inspiration, education, and elevated listening. Head to usaglobaltvradioshoп.myspreadshop.com. Your spotlight awaits. USA Global TV and Radio. Elevate your style. Elevate the world.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram-Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA-Global-TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.